Next, please join me in welcoming our partners who will be co-presenting. Welcome Isaac Gornichek and Kim Hale from Within3. Hey guys.
Hi.
Morning.
Morning.
How are you?
Morning. Good. How you doing?
Doing very well. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today.
Of course.
Well, we are very excited to be here, and we are excited to talk with you today about really virtual engagement, the whole process behind virtual engagement, and how do you engage your stakeholders both internally and externally, and how do we use that virtual technology to the very best of our abilities. So as Jenna said, my name is Kim Hale. I'm the VP Team Lead in Business Development at Within3. And Isaac, let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
You know, Isaac Gornichek. I hail from Las Vegas. Happy to be here, Kim. 20 plus years in the medical device and pharmaceutical industry, and I'm one of the managers, one of three, I think, for Within3. So again, happy to be here and looking forward to a good session.
Fantastic. And by the way, just for everybody's information, I'm based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. I've been in the medical device space for about 30 years now, which is a really long time when you think about it. So we're excited to be here today and excited to chat with you. And really, let's go ahead and just jump into this, Isaac. We, about 20 months ago now, we're coming on to close to 2 years now, the entire world was forced into a arena basically where we had to begin to use virtual engagements. I mean, companies sent people home. They were doing things that had really never been done before. But they were also missing some things that they had done in the past that they all knew worked very well for them. So I want to kind of have you compare, Isaac, the then before COVID and kind of what is now taking place after COVID, or while we're still during the pandemic.
You know, it's interesting, Kim, and you're right. I mean, I'll talk real briefly about the then and then also the second half of the slide, which is the now. One thing to keep in mind, too, that Within3 has been doing this for about 14 years, really, where we've been working with clients to assess and assist them in, their overall strategy and their overall hybrid strategy, really helping them focus on the engagement and not just, it wasn't really just about filling a room or really just, trying to figure out this single time, single day, single venue. It was really about trying to figure out, hey, how do you maintain these relationships and these long-term conversations and keep them going? But really then what did we have? We either it was virtual or it wasn't. Either we brought people in, either you brought folks in, or you didn't, or you decided to have a web call. This was, and so, I mean, typically what was a virtual meeting? A virtual meeting was in essence, it was a webcast, typically with the camera. There wasn't probably a lot of back and forth. There wasn't a lot of interaction. Some of the platforms that we have today have come quite far in their ability to share back and forth, but still far from perfect. One thing too is that last bullet point, which I think is really important to point out, is that a lot of the times what we saw, and we still see this to some extent today, is that there are a lot of people that are excluded from the conversation. You might have 15 to 20 people or even more on a webcast, and you may end up, the questions are asked, and you might hear from maybe 3, 4, or 5 folks, and that's really it. So, which is, I think, frustrating. It's probably frustrating for those that are trying to capture the information, as well as frustrating for those that are sharing the information. And then what do we see now? And thank goodness we've come fairly far. We've come a little further. I think some companies more so than others, Kim, right, over the past 20 months. I think you and I would both agree some are doing a better job than others. Some actually have a plan, some don't. But I think now what we've really learned is that we can have a thoughtful mix of different varying tools that we can use. It's not just one or the other. We can really have this hybrid mix of approaches. What's so wonderful too is that we can continue a conversation now throughout the year. It's not just a one-time event, but you might have a one-time event in person, but then what's great is that you can continue that conversation longer, for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and really capture a lot more information and a lot more insights. And what's great is because of that, because those conversations can continue, those viewpoints are expanded. Really what is an event and what really could look like. It's not about just filling seats in a room now for a day or two or a weekend, but it's a lot greater than that. It really is about, hey, what are the insights? What are we trying to accomplish? And then of course that last bullet point speaks to that last prior bullet point, is it's all about including people. We are in a society now today where we are about inclusion, right? We want everybody to have a place at the dinner table. We want everybody to love the food. We want everybody to have a great time and feel full at the end of the dinner. And so I think that's so important too with our conversations with our audience, is that, look, everybody is included. So that's really what the now is. Kim, so let me ask you this though. Let's talk tools, and if you wouldn't mind, share a little bit about what a hybrid KOL engagement toolkit looks like.
Well, you're right on, Isaac, in the fact that I have to go back to the then for a second. Does anybody out here, you can all like nod your head or whatever since we can't see you, but you remember the old, you got to mount your camera on top of your computer. You had that little round camera and you had to mount it on the top of the computer and you hope it didn't fall off, and the lighting looked really, really bad. But you thought it was amazing because you got to engage with people that you never had a chance to engage with unless you had flown someplace. So that was an exciting time. It really was. But then exactly like what you said, Isaac, is people began to take over those conversations. You would have 10 people on a call and they would take over, one or two of the people would do all the talking. And the same thing occurred, in live meetings and things like that as well. So what we wanted to try to do is to create a hybrid model, a toolkit, you might say, basically, that included all aspects of engagement, not just virtual engagement, but all aspects of engagement. So the live one-on-one meetings are still extremely important. I mean, there's no question about that. Relationships are built, being able to reach out and shake hands with somebody, being able to watch their body language, things like that. That's vitally important. And we hope that one-on-one meetings will come back to a certain extent. Will they ever come back to the way they were before? Will physicians ever take the time out of their practice or out of their hospitals because they're so busy to fly someplace to have an overnight meeting or something? Those times are gone. And we all have to acknowledge that and adapt to that. So we've got to have more, virtual engagement capabilities. And so again, the on-demand videos, the Zoom calls, the GoToMeetings, the WebEx, all of those that we've done in the past, those are going to be, again, vitally important to, being able to put together that relationship and build those relationships. Of course, email and phone calls. Phone calls makes me laugh because who actually makes a phone call? I think you said the other day, Isaac, that somebody actually called you. And we talked about that because it was amazing.
It was. It felt good. I mean, I'm going to be honest. It was nice.
So, yeah, I mean, the email and phone, emails, though, how many of us have, hundreds of emails build up in our inbox that we just never quite get to? And so those are kind of the old ways, like you just talked about, the then way of doing things. Now, let's kind of take it into more of a now, today. What can we do? One of the first thing is we can build an asynchronous platform. And honestly, I didn't know what asynchronous meant until I went to work for Within3, but it's an overtime discussion. It's being able to allow people to come in whenever they would like. They can then participate at their convenience as opposed to having to be on a specific call at a certain time. And so again, these conversations are allowed to last longer. So a week, 2 weeks, people can come in and answer a question, and then they can think about it and actually come back and answer again. And I don't know about you, Isaac, but I get some of my best thoughts after a Zoom call, after I've hung up the phone or I've turned off my computer and I go, oh man, I wish I would have said this. And now with an asynchronous discussion platform, you have that capability. You can still incorporate Zoom calls and webcasts and stuff like that into it. You can put in, all your reference materials. You can have a digital depository where you can, basically put in all your marketing materials, and people can still reference those and take a look at those. But now you can have more of a digital collaboration where you can talk. You can come in when it's convenient for you. You don't have to synchronize schedules and try to figure out, if somebody's going to be on at 6 o'clock in the morning in Japan and 10 o'clock at night somewhere else in the world. It allows you to be more convenient and to be far more productive. So the Within3 platform really includes, the best way to think of it, Isaac, is like a three-legged stool. That's how I like to look at this, because we all think visually, right? And so that three-legged stool, you can stand on it. It's stable. You can sit on it for hours if it's not too uncomfortable. And it's very, very good. And it's very stable. And so the three legs that Within3 provides is number one, as we call our select product. That really, to to cut to the chase, it helps you identify your target audience, your key stakeholders. And it can be new people that you've never talked with before. So again, we'll help you identify those people that you want to connect with. Secondly, we will help to connect you with those people with that asynchronous overtime discussion where you can have these ongoing conversations. And these conversations can take place prior to a live one-on-one meeting. They can continue the discussion after a one-on-one meeting is done. So there's a lot of different ways to be able to use this overtime discussion. And then finally, at the end, not only do we provide you pages of transcript, but we now also provide you what's called an executive summary. So within 10 days, we will summarize all the information that you learned in that Connect product and in that Connect discussion, and we will provide that for you so you have actionable insights with which to make decisions on and to move your company forward. So that's really what we would call a hybrid engagement platform. But as we move forward in that, what a Connect session look like, Isaac? What exactly, how does it come together? And as a company, what would I expect from a Connect session?
You know, it's pretty simple. I think it's probably a lot less complicated than a lot of people think, but typically it kicks off with a webcast. We normally have a lot of our clients will do what's called, they'll bookend it with a webcast in the beginning and then a webcast towards the end. But typically with this kickoff webcast comes along where we start the asynchronous session as well. I mean, you want to put names with faces. You want to interact as much as possible. I think humans, as human beings, we crave the interaction with one another. We love to sit and have dinner. We want to get together, but we know that we just can't do that as often as we need to or really as we like. Now, typically this overtime discussion lasts for quite some time. Usually a week to 2 weeks is where we see the sweet spot. A lot of Q&A happens, a lot of insights are shared. And what's great is there truly is a discussion. Yes, and that's not the kind of the discussion that we're having right now, Kim, on this particular webcast, but it is a discussion that happens over time where folks can chat with one another and comments can be made and people can be tagged and brought into the conversation and notified and so on in a really simple way. Typically, about 3/4 of the way through, there'll be another webcast where they'll talk about progress, steps, and you don't have to do a webcast, but typically people will. And then during that webcast, they'll talk about final deliverables. They'll talk about, hey, what are next steps? And then they'll really wrap up and say, hey, look, you have 3 days. Let's get this all taken care of. And then the session closes. What's great is that after the session closes is you'll have a results call. You'll be able to talk amongst each other, be able to share that information that's gleaned. And typically, what's great is in today's world where people had to wait 1 or 2 or 3 weeks to get the information, now we can do it in a lot less time than that. So you don't keep that project from moving forward. You actually can push it, and it actually moves forward rather quickly. So
let me ask you a question though. Does the overtime discussion take place or take the place of a webinar or a video conference?
It's interesting that you say that because I could say yes and no. The overtime discussion could take the place of an overtime discussion if you needed it to. But typically it doesn't necessarily take the place of it. No, and when we talk with clients, we encourage both to happen. I mean, typically when you talk about the term hybrid, that's really what a hybrid is, right? It's doing what we're doing in essence today, but then it's also doing a little bit of what's on the right-hand side of that everybody's taking a look at where we have a chat, right? Where we can chat back and forth and we can discuss this. Imagine being able to, once you and I are done, continue that conversation long term. The amount of insights that are going to be gleaned are just incredible. So for sure. But, Kim, let me ask you this, though. What are opportunities that clients reference when they assess their engagement strategy? And really, what are they looking for and trying to accomplish?
Everybody talked about how we all got pushed forward 5 years in the last 20 months. Mm-hmm. And how we all had to adapt. We all had to get better at what we were doing from a virtual engagement standpoint. And there were a lot of opportunities that arose from that, a lot of great things. It's interesting. I was talking to a colleague this morning, and we were talking about the fact that a lot of the companies, specific medical device companies, they sent their people home. They started doing everything, via webinars and things like that. And their revenue didn't change. And in fact, in some cases, it got better because people were better able to work from home. They were more productive. But at the same time, they were able to cut costs from travel and things like that. So there were a lot of opportunities that arose out of this that we were kind of forced to address. Now, some of those opportunities is, number one, is we can connect with people outside of the normal groups. I mean, we've all had our connections that we've used, especially in the device world, for years and years and years. You know, device companies are very kind of slow to change. They use the same people for a long, long time. And like I said, I've worked in the device world for 30 years, so I understand this. But with one of the opportunities that we were able to have was the ability to really diversify and to include more people, the inclusivity there, to be able to have more people involved in a conversation because we were doing it virtually. We weren't just flying a certain amount of people in, the same people we've flown in for years and had this discussion around a conference room. Now we were able to discuss with people that were in China or Japan or Brazil or you know, anywhere in Canada. You know, we had this huge influx of new opinions, new ideas. And because of that, our insights got better. You know, we actually learned more because now we were including more people. You know, we noticed people that actually provided and then started giving us more information. Like I said, we got better, and we were better to able to positively impact our business, you know, our clients, the world, you might say. It also provided a work-life balance. You know, physicians obviously time is money now, and they're extremely busy. And the last thing that they want to do is to take time away from their practice, from the hospital, from their families, and get on an airplane and fly somewhere. And we understand the fact that those one-on-one, you know, meetings, trade shows are important for those relationship building. But again, even at the trade shows that we've attended in a live session this year, attendance is down by upwards of 80% because, again, they don't want to leave. You know, they don't want to leave their practices. They don't want to leave their families. People are still worried that travel is going to expose them to COVID and to things like that. So even attendance at the live shows is way down. And again, what a virtual engagement does is it allows, just like what we're doing today, is we can do the same thing that we normally would have done at a live show, only we can do it virtually, and people can be literally sitting in their underwear, you know, watching this and enjoying a great cup of coffee in the morning. So again, we've already talked about the fact that it allows you to include people from around the globe now. So you get a better group of people that you're now listening to. And again, the bottom line of all of this is if we get better at engaging, then our patients get better. That's one of the things that I think we all forget about in the big picture of things is we're doing all of this to make sure that the patients have a better life. They have a better lifestyle, that they have better products, that they have better devices with which to be able to live a better, happy, healthier life. And I think that's one of the most important things that hopefully the virtual engagement and the hybrid platforms will provide people. So, but what about the challenges, Isaac? What are some of the challenges that your clients are really facing now that they're getting more information faster? I mean, I call it the fast food mentality, right? I mean, it's like they're being, you know, shoved at us, things where we're gaining information, we're gaining insights, but what's happening to those insights? How are we organizing them so we don't lose everything?
You know, I'll first tell you that I do have my pants on, though, at least that much. For those of you that were wondering, I do have a jacket, a shirt, and pants, so we're good there.
Good to know.
But I'll say this. You know, you alluded to something where you said better, that we're better at gaining insights, which I think we are. You know, we are now. We have the ability to grab information more effectively and more efficiently than we have ever had before. But I think there's challenges that come along with that, because now really that's what this insights gap is that you will hear Within3. We'll talk about it all day long. We're starting to hear it more and more from our customers. It's kind of interesting. They'll talk about it. And when we bring it up, we say, oh, by the way, that's an insights gap. I think, oh yeah, that is it. You know, they were looking to somehow to how to define that, because the problem is either the information isn't collected, though I think that there are ways to collect it now that are a lot better and more effective, right, than we used to. But then it's like, how is it used? How is it shared amongst teams within a company? People tend to operate in silos. They tend to not share a lot of information back and forth. Usually marketing is saying that sales doesn't give them enough information, and sales is saying that marketing isn't giving them enough information, that they truly don't understand each other's business. And so that means that leaders are running around trying to figure out, how do we connect these two so that we can obviously get to the right people, and so on, and have these really good conversations. I think that the challenges too that go along with this is that it becomes extremely costly, because if you're not doing a very good job of capturing the information, collecting it and sharing it, then are you selecting the right people? We talk to companies every day, Kim, at least I do, and I know you do as well, that they may have the right KOLs, they may not, and they're not exactly sure if those key opinion leaders are the right people, or perhaps they're opening up and entering into a new market. They also are, is it the right venue? That's costly if you choose the wrong venue or the wrong approach, and then as well as, do they have quick access to the right results? That can be an issue as well. So there's a lot of different challenges, and then it's just a matter of, hey, how do we roll it out to our team? How do we train and teach? There's quite a few challenges that are out there that I know that, Kim, we deal with every day. I mean, I have probably 3 calls this afternoon with folks that are having an issue with trying to get to the right people, and then engaging them in a manner that is convenient, easy, and is going to be effective. Or effective, excuse me.
So if you don't have the right people sitting around the table, then how do you find the right people? I know in the past people have used agencies, they've used their reps in the field to find, the people that they feel like would be important to talk with. But are there other ways of doing that?
Yeah, there definitely are. And there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes, I think, that we never see, right? We try to keep up with who the rising stars are. We try to keep up with what's being said and talked about and discussed in the invisible colleges, what's being discussed behind the scenes, for instance, at trade shows that are going and are participating in that. And so I think it's important to work with companies like Within3, who has the ability to select, to identify and to map KOLs that are well beyond just the 12 or the top 15 or the top 20 or the top 30. I mean, typically we can go to 150 to 200 folks, and we can really dive deep and roll up our sleeves. Really, you give us where you're looking for or what your needs are, we'll find those folks for you. And what's great is that we don't just do it in the United States. Typically the United States is probably a little bit easier to find KOLs, and then when you do get into to Europe or to Asia, really tracking down KOLs can be very, very difficult, and then very timely and very costly. And so that's why Within3 is taking that next step, because it's important. It's a big time challenge, Kim, because even if you have a way to engage, if you don't have the right people, it doesn't really matter how good you are at engaging if those folks aren't the right people. So
absolutely,
Kim, yeah. Let me ask you this, though. It's how are companies rethinking? I mean, you deal with this and you talk to and discuss this with companies every day. But how are they rethinking the future of engaging with their customers, and as well as what do their plans look like?
It's interesting because we talked with people, sometimes we have to help them realize what their problems really are. What is that insights gap? And they don't really even understand what that is. I know, speaking with a very large medical device company, we were talking about how they engaged their KOLs, both, and not only just KOLs, but their internal stakeholders, their marketing groups, because they're spread around the globe. How do you engage them? They said, well, we do it via, webinars. And, we use Zoom calls. And Zoom, of course, is obvious. It's synonymous with Kleenex. When you say Zoom, everybody knows exactly what you're talking about nowadays. So they said, we engage with Zoom calls. And I said, that's great. I mean, how are those calls going? He goes, well, they go pretty well. He says, if we get about 75% of the people that say they were going to be there that actually show up, then we're very happy with that. And then if we get at least 50% participation, we're ecstatic about that. And I said, okay, that's really good. And if you're getting 50%, let's say you have 10 people and 5 people are actually participating, that is good. And I said, but then how do you actually measure the ROI of that call? And he said, well, Kim, he said, we assign a scribe. And I had to laugh at that a little bit, because it's like we got pushed 5 years forward, into the virtual engagement platform because of COVID and because of the pandemic. But now they're taking a step, what I would consider to be 5 years backward, by assigning somebody to take notes. Because what if the person that's taking notes happened to have a sick child at home that day? And as they're typing along, taking the notes of the meeting, their mind begins to wonder how their child was doing. Are they feeling better? Is their fever down? And suddenly, in that 15 to 30-second moment, they missed the most important thing that was said in that Zoom call. And so, how do we solve that problem? I mean, again, webinars and Zoom calls are extremely important, and we will not take the place of those with an overtime discussion. But what if that overtime discussion could add to everything that was talked about within that Zoom call, to ask follow-up questions, to be able to get additional information? So we need, and I say we, meaning the device community, needs to figure out a way to have a contingency plan, a plan that's working better than what they're currently doing. Because I don't care how you slice it, Isaac, things are falling through the gap. They're falling through the holes. They're getting information, but they're not being able to disseminate it out throughout their entire business unit. Things are falling through the cracks. They're losing information. Emails are being lost. So we have got to find a better way to be able to develop a virtual hybrid engagement that allows us to incorporate things that we've learned, the webinars, emails, phone calls, and then add to that the overtime discussions, the ability to continue to have that connect both before and after a live in-person meeting. So really, Isaac, in my opinion, people need to look at that three-legged stool. They need to really consider what this three legs are going to be for them, and if it isn't going to provide that stability that they need to have to continue their virtual engagements moving forward. Because Isaac, don't you think that regardless of where we're at now, that things will never go back to the way they were?
I don't think that they'll go back to exactly the way that they were. I think that we'll take everything good that we did back either pre-pandemic and during the pandemic of what we learned. But I think we were going to make them more efficient. We're going to look for a lot more efficient ways. I mean, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. And that's something that I reiterate to my children every single day when they usually fall back to try to do something, the same way and expect a different result. So I just don't see it, Kim. In all the conversations that I've had, especially I've been to 3 conferences in person this year, talking with those both who are attending these conferences as well as those that are displaying and the companies who are there. And the folks are looking for different ways and different opportunities because they're worried. I mean, they absolutely are worried that, hey, how are we going to grow our business? How are we going to be successful when we can't connect with the folks that we need to? So they're definitely worried. And so hopefully we can help them in some way and be able to share with what the products and services are that we have at Within3, because honestly, we see that they work and they are working. And so I'm looking forward to working with others. And we hope that there's questions too out there. I know that Raquel put in the chat, hey, let us know if you have any questions. I mean, we're here to answer questions. We're here to bounce things off one another. Nobody has the perfect answer, I don't think, but we definitely working together can find a way to get through this and to become a lot better afterwards.
Well, thanks, Isaac, man. I appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who took the time to listen to us today. I hope that we made some sense out there for you. I hope that it expanded your mind just a little bit to say maybe there's some better ways to do things. Maybe there's some different ways to do things. And I know, the old adage, and I say this all the time, my dad used to say, well, I drive a Ford because my dad drove a Ford. Don't know why I drive a Ford. I just drive one because that's what my dad did. I want everybody out here that's listening today to begin to think outside of that box, to think, well, we've always done live in-person meetings, so we're just going to keep doing that. Or we've always done, Zoom calls, so we're just going to keep doing that. Think outside the box. Be a trendsetter, basically. Think about what can we do differently and do it better than somebody else is doing. What can we do better so that we can engage our stakeholders? So, and most importantly, so we can make life better for our patients. Because again, bottom line, really that's what it's all about. So everybody, thank you very much. We appreciate the time that you've allowed us to be here today. And we'll turn it back over to you.
Hey, Kim, we do have about 5 minutes left here, so I don't know if there are any questions that anybody has. think Jenna from Momentum has put a couple of questions out there.
I can't see them because my screen was up, but go ahead and read them out.
You know, I think there's a couple of questions. One would be a simple question is, do you have a contingency plan, right? Or have an idea of what that would be? I think that's a good question. Actually, what's some of the feedback when we've asked that? Because I know you've asked it, right? And I know that I have too, but Kim, on your end, when you've asked a company, because I know you asked a big Fortune 50 company, maybe even Fortune 25 company, what their contingency plan was. And I think they came back with, well, we're not sure.
Their answer was, we all hope that we're going to be able to have live one-on-one meetings again. And again, it's what I just said. You got to be able to think outside of the norms. That, you know, back in 2019, it was a great thing. People love to travel, especially if you lived in, you know, a really cold climate. If you lived in Utah, where I live, or you lived in Minneapolis or something, and if you could fly to San Diego, or you could fly to New Orleans, and that's great. And you could have that relationship building type of meeting. But that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And I think people from the marketing communication standpoint and other, you know, medical affairs need to understand that there's got to be a better way to engage those people, to give them the information that allows them to really have what I talked about earlier, that work-life balance, that they're not forcing them to do things that they used to do. Let's make it better. So the contingency plan is really, for most companies, is we have no contingency plan. We're just figuring it out as we go. I call it the Band-Aid approach. You know, we put Band-Aids on in the last 20 months. Now we need to tear those Band-Aids off, and we need to develop a real live plan move forward for the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. And I would absolutely agree. Most folks that I talk to, they have a plan. They think that it's a good plan. And I think everybody's trying to do the best that they can. But we're here to help. You know, Within3, we have the experience and we have the knowledge and understanding. And I think some really good approaches to helping folks work through this. And so we're just looking forward to working with more people and helping them really close that insights gap that they're experiencing, and being able to share and disseminate information, I mean, within their companies. And ultimately, like you mentioned too, is getting back to the patients, that if the patients can get better, if better surgical procedures can be done because of the information that's had, and better teaching and training and so on and so forth, then ultimately at the end of the day, it's the patient that benefits, which is ultimately, I would hope that most people are in this business to see. So.
Perfect.
Thanks, Jenna. Turn it over to you.
That was wonderful. No, thank you so much. That was great. And, you know, it's definitely a hot topic of the new norm and what it's going to look like moving forward. And in this, like you mentioned, this hybrid approach, this virtual world, do people want to go back? People are looking forward to going back. So thank you so much for going into more detail and answering that question. I know we have a panel happening next, kind of following the same thing with, you know, talking about this hybrid approach. So thank you so much. I look forward to continuing the conversation at 12:05, and we'll keep in touch. Thank you both.
Thanks, Jenna.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Jenna.